Hello everyone, welcome to a new lesson of the course. And here, as we already said, we'll start extracting these elements UV maps. Okay, we won't do all the elements because there are too many objects, but we will work with the cactus UV maps, for example, and one of these elements so you can see how it's done. And from that, with the other elements left, you can just practice yourselves and do it on your own. So first, we'll start with something easy so we can see the process of how it's done. Let's get the floor and we'll extract its UV maps. And then we'll start with some parts of the cactus that are a bit more complex. In order to do this, in the layout options, we have two examples. If we switch to BP UV Edit, we'll get this interface, which will make easier to work with UV maps since it gives us a series of new options and windows, like this one, for example. We also have here some modifiers, some new buttons which appeared, and one in particular, this one here, Paint Setup. It lets you automatically do some kind of UV maps. It's not completely automatic. Sometimes, depending on the object, it may require some extra help, but it usually does things pretty well. So we'll use this element and we'll click here, and as you see, this window pops up with a list of the hierarchy in our objects, just like we had it before in the side. If we click the select all, we deselect them all, and in this case, we'll state that we only want this option to work with the floor. Okay, here's the floor, so we'll click it and we'll only do the floor. We'll click next, here too, finish, and automatically we hit close. Now we won't be seeing anything here, but if we activate, for example, this button here, the polygons, we'll see that it automatically extracted the map. All right? Besides, as I was saying, since the floor was a very easy part, you see there's no problem. Now what we have to do is to put a texture. So let's create a new texture using this button. And we'll set a size. In my case, I set it to 1080 per 1080. All right? Hit OK. We have the size set already. And now what we have to do is to fill color all this selection in order to later know in Photoshop where the map or the texture is. If now we try to select these polygons, we'll see it's not possible. Why is this happening? Well, this happens because we have to convert the object into an editable object. We don't have it as an editable object, so we'll switch to the standard layout for a moment. And we'll convert this floor to an editable object. Okay, so the icon is now this little triangle. This is very important because if we don't, we won't be able to select the polygons. Now back to the previous layout, and now we can select all these polygons. Notice that when we select a polygon, we see its position in the 3D view. Okay. As I was saying, this is quite easy to do with the floor since it's a flat element. Very easy, but then it gets a bit difficult. When we get to the flower part, you'll see it's a bit more complicated. Good, so we did the texture, which we said that we have to go to File, New Texture, set the size, and OK. We can also create a new layer here in the Layers tab. See? There's the background, which is gray. And there's the layer we just created. So now we can perfectly grab all these polygons here, like this. And say we want to paint all this texture, for example, white. So we have the white color here. Click the paint bucket, and it automatically paints the texture. All right? We can take out the background in order to keep a transparent layer. Now we click File, Save Texture, and there we can choose the format we want. In this case, TIFF PSD. Click OK, and here we could save the floor. We'd have to create a folder, obviously. This is important to have it well organized. So we'll type in the name of the course. And here we would start saving all the textures we extract. In this case, the floor. We go to the folder, and we can see that there's the floor in a transparent background with a texture. This is what we'll later paint in Photoshop. The white part is the whole floor. Besides, on the floor, we'll also use a more advanced technique using alphas in order to get some transparencies and for these to be more blurred. We'll see this later too. Good, so this is the easy way to do it. As you see, it's not too complicated, but it gets trickier when we start with other kind of elements, like for example the flower pot. Let's do the same we did before. Let's click this button here, click select, and select the flower pot. Click next, next, and finish. Here, as you see, the program made a projection of the UV map. It's quite well done, as you see. It's quite coherent. But let's see how to improve it. We can see, as I said before, that if I select in the 3D view a part, I can see in the UV map which zone it represents. Okay? Now what I want to do, for example, is to select all the exterior part of the flower pot, the middle of it, all of these that you're seeing, in order to group it and organize it better. The better organized it is, the easier it will be to paint it, okay? When, for example, there are very advanced textures in which there can be texts, we have to do this even better. In this case, we'll paint a face in the flower pot, but as you see, if we put it here, we would just have to place the face around here. In this case, wherever it is, here. If I want to paint the face here, exactly where it's selected, this part here is what I would paint with the face. Let's keep selecting this part. Set a selection to. Okay, perfect. Once we have all these selected, we'll organize these as follows. We'll go to the UV mapping tab. And here in projection, we have a series of elements with which we can project this texture in 2D and place it better. For example, we have the box option here, in which if we click here and we have this set to object system, we can place the cubes in a more organized way. Okay? You should take a look at this and try it out, because depending on the element we're working on, one option or the other will be better. In this case, I don't want to confuse you talking about too many options, but just for you to see what it does when you select sphere, okay? It does this projection, cylinder, frontal. Well, use frontal depending on the element, because it will be quite helpful. And we also have flat, cubic 2, which is quite similar to box, and ring. Well, now we press E, which would be the movement arrows, and we place this outside, okay? And for now, we'll leave it there. Now we just keep selecting the rest of the elements in order to organize them the same way. For example, these parts here, by pure logic, will be the inner sides of the cube, all right? So now we'll take these parts and we'll do the same. So like this, all of this. And we do the same. In the previous case, it worked fine, so click box. And we get it sorted out. Besides moving it, we can obviously rotate it with the other keys, scale it, all of these with the usual keys. Remember, we also have the buttons here. I'll place these here for now, okay? Notice that what we're really doing is organizing everything better in order to paint it easily later. Here we have these points that are in no man's land, so we'll use the rectangular selection and we'll get both these and these, which are the rim of the flower pot, and we'll try to see if we can organize it better. So click box, okay? Notice here in box, it makes this projection. We'll leave it in box too. And we can also leave these here for a moment and try to join all these parts in the same polygon, so to speak. That is, we'll select all these, which corresponds to this selection here, and we'll click box. And as you see, when adding all these selections, we get something more adequate to paint it properly. This part, which would be the outer part, we could make it slightly bigger and place it in here. Using T, we make these smaller, and using E, we place it. Like this. See? Now it's much better organized. And these parts here, which are the bottom of the other bottom, they're okay as they are. We could just finish adjusting it to the size of the other elements. So we select it, hit box, and we select this one too, and we hit box. Okay, so we have these, and now it's just about placing the polygons inside the map, which is still the correct size, 1080 per 1080. So we just take this and place it, okay? One around here, for example. And it's done. This is just about organizing it however we want, okay? The texture size is big, so it's more than enough. Now we select everything, go to the Layers tab, and remember to first create a new layer. Delete the background, create another layer, and we paint all these elements. We can choose a color, for example. We can put a more adequate color to what we're doing as a base. For example, a yellowish color or more orangey, more or less the color we want, and we click the paint bucket. So we paint these with this color. Now, in order to export this file, save texture, make sure it's in TIFF PSD format in order to save the transparency. Click OK, and here we would write the name, flower pot. Click Save. And now we have the same, the flower pot projection, so we can properly paint it later in Photoshop. Okay? Alright, we're going to do now another complicated element, like the cactus, so you can see the procedure. So let's proceed with the cactus body, and for this, we'll switch to the BP UV Edit layout, and we'll repeat the procedure. We'll deselect everything and we'll look for the cactus body. It will be more complicated because the more polygons there are, the more complicated it is. The lesser the polygons, the easier it gets. That's why this technique is widely used in low poly, because it lets you get the maps easier, unlike models with a higher polygon load. So here is the cactus body. We'll check it so we can work on it. And click Next, Next, Finish. Here we can see it made this kind of selection, which is quite good. We had previously selected these parts here so we can make the work easier. Notice that on top of the model, there's some kind of error. But well, this part, since it will be under the flower and will just be green, it won't cause much trouble, okay? And patiently we try to improve, especially these parts lost up the bottom. For example, here we have this polygon, which if we select it and look for it, we'll find it here. Okay? The adjacent polygon is not next to it in the texture. It's on the other side. But we rather have it here. Both this one and this one, okay? Notice they're on this side of the cactus, but they should be this side. So we select these two, then select all these, and we click box. Okay? As always, you can try different options. In this case, the box option in object system will work fine. So we press E and we move it here. Okay? We start analyzing the shape. We see there's a polygon missing here. Select this one. And we see that this one right here is the one missing. So we look for it and we find it here. We grab it and we place it around here approximately. And now again, we will select all the shape and click box. So as you see, everything will fall into place. We place it here again, and one more time, we check what's missing. For example, if we see this side, we have this polygon, which as you see is missing in the projection group. We click it, and we see it's lost around here. So we grab it and place it, and we follow the same procedure we did until now. As you see, it's a slow procedure, but it's the way to do it. There's no other way. We select all these and click box. And now, as you see, we have all these projection much better built. We would finally have this part here, which, as you see, is missing another polygon. This polygon here is the one missing. So we'll look for it around here and we'll place it in. Okay. Click box. Well, this part, as you see, would be completely built. As I was saying, we'll rebuild the top afterwards. Now what we'll do is the same we did with this side with the other side. So I'll fast forward through this since you've already seen the procedure, and we'll do the top afterwards. Good, so now we have the sides of the cactus done. Here we have the flat projection. And now we have this part here, which is messier, which is the top part, which is more complicated because there are a lot of joints and they create these errors, you know. As you see, we can just hide the flower. Switch to the top view. And as you can see here, in order to do this better than what it could seem at first glance, we can hit the frontal button. So as you can see, we get a completely frontal projection of what we're seeing. So even though it looks a bit messy, after painting it green, it will look fine. So we can place this aside and we have all these organized. So let's lay it on the texture. All right, we go back to the perspective camera. And now one thing we can also do in order to make the painting easier is to select and paint from here some different shapes. For example, the lines will be a lighter tone than the inner parts of the cactus. Okay, so in order for this to be easier and easily locate later in Photoshop where each part is, we can paint it here with different colors. We'll create a layer and delete this one. We're going to select all this and we'll paint it green. Okay, this green for example. Now hit the paint bucket icon, so we paint this green. Now what we'll do is select from here the polygons that will be a different color. So now patiently we keep selecting all the polygons. We'll grab this and we make these selections, both this side and the others. Okay. All right, once we've selected all these, we go back to the BP UV edit layout. We can see the selections here. If we select the UV polygon edit mode, we can see what we selected, and now we'll do the following. Switch to the Layers tab, create a new layer, change this color to a different green, for example, lighter, and hit the Fill Polygons button, which will paint the textures from the texture view. See? Now, if we export this, in Photoshop, we'll know that if we're painting on the lighter part, we'll be painting on the lines. So let's go to File, Save Texture, OK, and name it Cactus Body. OK. Another interesting object to do is the cheese. This will be very easy, but I also want you to see why we did the cheese as a plane and with what is it going to help us do it this way. So let's switch to BP UV Edit Layout. Click the Paint Setup Wizard tool, select all, and locate one of the two slices of cheese, for example this one. Okay, I have selected the cheese. Now click Next, Next, Finish. Perfect. We have this here. This is so easy. It quickly did the selection and very well done. Let's go to the Layers tab, create two new layers as always. We delete the background and we'll paint this selection yellow. There it is. File, Save Texture, and we name it Cheese. Let's follow with the nachos. Let's switch to the BP UV Edit layout. And as always, we'll look for the element itself. Select all and select this one. Next, Finish, and there it is. As always, enable the UV polygons mode, and well, we see that it was automatically well done, both sides and the edges. In this case, we'll easily do this. We won't modify anything else. We create a couple of new layers, delete the background, and on the top layer, as always, we paint these using a more yellowish color. There it is. Okay, so after this, let's continue with the sombrero. Okay, this one also looks like it was very well projected. As you see, the lesser the polygons an element has, the easier it is to make these kind of procedures. We could just maybe take these here and try to put them closer. And we also have this part here that, as you see, it's not well projected, actually, simply because we want to paint it later. If we want to make some kind of triangles, this shape, as you see, is not adequate. So we'll also take this, click on Box, and this way, now we would be able to perfectly paint some motifs here, following a look or applying correctly the texture afterwards. since the other way it wouldn't be possible. Okay, let's leave these around here. We'll make it smaller. Let's see if it fits. As you see, we have to make space for the different elements so everything fits in the texture. It's a quite slow process. That's why this course will be quite long, but it's just the only way to do this right. We can place this lower. We'll leave it the way it was. We'll place it at the bottom so we have more space. There. And these ones here, we'll select them and place them around here. Let's see if it fits. There. Okay, tight. Good. As always, we select them and we'll paint these with a specific color. In this case, this one here, for example, let's go to the Layers tab, create 2 layers, delete the background, and on the top layer, we'll paint as always using the Fill Polygons button. File, Save As, and we name it. Good, so we'll leave the remaining elements for you to practice. So we'll leave it here, and I'll see you in a bit.